Everyone knows they should be saving and planning for retirement, but most of us put it off. And it makes sense. Retirement will be one of the biggest transitions of your life. And with it comes a lot of fear and uncertainty. The problem is, putting off planning for retirement can be incredibly costly. And I've seen many people end up working years longer than they need to simply because they never took the time to sit down and make a plan. So in this video, I'm being joined by one of our advisors, Michael Barrichello, to discuss why people procrastinate planning for retirement and what you can do today to finally start taking action. All right, Michael, thank you so much again for joining us in this video. I'll quickly jump into number one here. What is procrastination in retirement? And that's really, the idea is it's not laziness. Like a lot of people think procrastination equals laziness. And that's typically not the case. When it comes to retirement, the procrastination is more driven around like fear, anxiety, overwhelmment. Like you've done something for 30, 40 years, and now you're making this big transition into something new. So typically people aren't, I'm not planning for retirement because I'm lazy. I'm sitting on the couch with my, Diet Coke and bag of chips. It's just the fear. Like I don't really want to deal with that. And there's a lot of data out there where it talks about like even high achievers put this off. And if you look at, C-suite level executives across the board, many of them work into their 60s, 70s, even 80s. I mean, if you look at Warren Buffett, he worked into his 90s. Now, did they do it because they love what they do? Maybe, but is it more of a procrastination? I think for a lot of them it is. Like they find their root and their personality in their job. And so it's a fear of kind of leaving that and moving on.
And so another thing is the common reasons, why we delay retirement planning. And just not necessarily, we're not talking about delaying retirement, we're saying the planning part of it. And so, as you know, when we talk about insurance or investments, that's a tough topic. And I think that's one of the big issues is that couples, families just have a tough time talking about some of these topics. And one of the big ones is mortality, right? If we knew, well, how many clients have said, well, if I only knew when I was going to die, right? So then we'd know how much money to spend, how much insurance to have. And so I find that really resonates with our process, especially when we take that go, slow go, and no go approach, because people can then start to see, where am I spending? How am I spending? And I think it really starts to set that picture in motion. And then you get into the other not so nice conversations like health decline, because I think from a planning process, death is easier to deal with. If somebody dies, it's done. Whereas if somebody's declining, we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what the added costs are going to be. We don't know the added stress to the caregiver. We know it's out there, but we don't know the financial impact of that. And then there's just the day-to-day money stress. And if you've got adult children that need extra help, and we've done lots of plans where somebody has 3 kids, 2 are off on their own and they're perfect, and then 1 is just lagging behind and needs the extra help. And how much do they help them, and does that cause them to stay working an extra year or two? So those types of tough issues. I think you were alluding to it also. I'll just deal with it later, right? Like there's always time. I'll get to it, a little bit later. And also the overwhelming factor, right? And you had mentioned it about some of our clients are extremely successful and they're super smart and they're great savers and they're awesome with investing. But when it comes to this part, like putting the plan in motion and saying, how do I draw from all these different buckets that I have? That's where they need the help. And I don't think it's that they would always need the help. And as you're aware, I think it's just coaching them through those first couple of years. And then they tend to learn that. Whereas we do have other clients that do want us to kind of hold their hands through that entire process. People are
Yeah.
busy, whether it's work, whether it's family, it just gives them that sense of urgency. So they put this off. And then there's a cost to it. This isn't a free service. So there's a cost to doing that. And then you have to invest your time. You have to invest your emotions into preparing to retire and get this plan done, because maybe it won't be what you expected. Maybe you have to be a bit of a realist when that plan comes down. And I think one of the last things that you mentioned about diving into work, or sometimes work defines people, right? And so preparing or trying to think of, well, what's my purpose if I'm not working? Like, who am I? And we had talked about that, I think, on one of those 5 mistakes of retirement planning, or, not, I think it was getting into finding a hobby or finding a club or finding something to retire into. And so if you wait too long, that eludes, and sometimes leads to the planning being delayed as well.
Yeah, and headlines often will get people like reasons to wait is if people see headlines, the market's not good or this is coming. So I just want to, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, right? But of course, like the hazards of waiting are like we talk about RSP meltdown a lot, and that why we talk about it is because we do hundreds of plans every year, and we can see firsthand that people save money. Typically, delaying RSP, drawing down the RSP. There's a lot of tax strategy to be had,
Mm-hmm.
especially in your 60s, even 50s, if you're able to retire even earlier. But those earlier years, like the go-go years of retirement, they're the years to enjoy and spend money. But a lot of the time, a lot of the tax savings and strategy and simplification of complex situations comes in those earlier years. So obviously, one of the hazards of waiting is you might miss those years, right? And we have a lot of clients that come to us and like they're in their early 70s, and yeah, there's always planning and savings and less taxes to be paid, but a lot of that strategy, time is not on their side anymore, right? Another downfall of waiting would be you may not have the option to time your CPP or your old age security to what's best for you, right? If you keep waiting till 70, well, you're probably not going to take your old age security. Well, maybe you wanted to, maybe it made sense. So there's a lot of factors there when it comes to government benefits, other benefits that may not be fully optimized because you procrastinated it. So and also estate assets. So we do a lot of plans for clients that say, I need $5,000 a month, and we do a plan and they have eight. So there's a lot more money in the kitty. And their plan is, yeah, we want to leave that money to the kids. Well, I talked to someone yesterday actually on the phone. They had a big non-registered. They received an inheritance non-registered. They knew they don't need it. So it's essentially a fairly large $500,000 amount of cash sitting there, earning interest, climb back old age security, and they're still working. And they're not sure what to do and what's going on. I said, look, like we need to get you retired. We also need to start planning to get that money off your books and to your kids now, because it's actually a tax liability for you now. It's causing you extra taxes. It's clawing back your old age security. It's not helping you. It's money you'll never need. You're leaving it to them down the road. So one of the benefits of not procrastinating is actually like looking at items like this of, I could actually shift that future inheritance off now, start getting more old age security, start paying less tax, and help my kids because they have mortgages at 5, 6, 7% interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we talk about generational wealth. So a lot of the why do you want to start planning earlier, don't procrastinate, is to take advantage of this stuff. Like a lot of you are paying taxes you don't need to pay because you haven't done the plan you need to do. And so, start looking into this stuff. Estate planning is part of the overall retirement plan. It's so important. You want to have a clear picture walking into retirement. So you need to start planning for that. It's always like a trip. Like if you're planning a trip, Michael and I were just talking before we started recording here, like talking about trips and travel and stuff. Like you don't go on a trip. It's like, well, I'm going to go tomorrow for, a week in Italy or 2 weeks in Italy. It's like, no, you plan ahead. You start planning for many people years and years before, right? It's like this dream. And then you start planning, where do we want to go? How do we want to get there? Where do we want to stay? It's the same with retirement.
And I think the next section we were looking at was shifting your mindset. And again, mental is just a huge part of the whole process, right? And, retirement planning itself isn't about loss. And we were talking about anxiety earlier and just people feeling anxious sometimes and, the emotional stress of even thinking about retiring. But if you turn it around, it should really be, and as you were talking about, giving you a chance to have some control, right? Giving you that freedom and the protection that you might want to know that it's okay. And so that's where the planning comes in. We're not telling you have to retire, but at least you're having the direction to know what's possible and what's not. Another way of thinking of it, it's kind of like risk management. So, as we plan with families, we sometimes talk about insurance policies as risk management. But in this case, the retirement plan becomes your risk management because you know exactly what you can do, what you can leave behind. Again, assuming everything followed the plan, accordingly. That helps relieve some stress. And, it might be something that you share with the family. Maybe you don't. But again, it's just something that provides you with that extra security. And then lastly, there's this sense of empowerment, right? There's this sense of relief that people will get. And I don't know how many times we've done plans and they're like, we feel much better now. We know that we're on the right track. And we have lots of clients that do their own spreadsheets and they're kind of looking for a second opinion. And it's great when we can say, we're actually ahead of their tracking, right? And we're showing them that they can spend more money. And so that's always a great feeling. And as the saying goes, knowledge is power. So knowing what is possible and perhaps what's not possible at least provides that relief and maybe some closure to the process.
So people are going to ask, well, what are some practical steps to avoid procrastination? So I would say the first one is start date, right? It's like anything. Retirement's the same as I want to lose weight. Okay, what's the start date? What's the goals? So with retirement, I would say pick a start date. And that could be one of two. It could be a start date of here's when I want to retire. So work backwards and start planning. It could also be this is when I want to start planning for retirement. Maybe retirement's 3 or 5 or 10 years away. So here's my start date. Here's where I'm going to start working through retirement. And if you're watching videos like this, you started that. So hopefully the procrastination for a lot of you watching this is lower than most. The next step is to pick that date, put it in the calendar, and start working towards that. From there, you want an annual checkup. So clients always ask us when they do a plan, like how often do I need this updated? We always say as often as you want, or I always say, when you have a financial event, good or bad, if things get derailed, come back, let's make sure that plan stays up to date. But do an annual check-in with your plan. So once you have a good plan, it should show you account values. If you're already in retirement, like where that money's coming from and how, like what the account value should be at the end of each year. Keep track of that. So an annual checkup could be an internal one, or if things have changed, loop back with your financial planner to get that checked up on. And then set recurring reviews. So this is outside of the annual checkup. Review how things are going. Like what were your goals? So if you're preparing for retirement, what's on that checklist leading up to retirement? Have you accomplished that? Like, are you working through that list? As you get into retirement, I think it's really important to create a bucket list. I'm a big bucket list guy. What is it that you want to do in those go-go years? And review that every year, right? It may not be a big trip every year or joining the club or whatever it is, but make sure you work through that list. So again, good to go through a recurring checklist, set a date every year, put it in your calendar, the alarm will go off and jump back into it. So, and again, we strongly encourage you, like talk to your financial planner. If you don't have one, find one in your area or reach out to our team, but hire a professional. Like we see it day in, day out. We get DIY plans. We get plans from, investment people that are trying to do retirement planning. Look, retirement planning is a different beast altogether. There's a lot more moving parts. It's the decumulation of assets, not accumulation. It's a very different game. So make sure you have a professional on your side that understands this. And as you watch one of our videos, you'll understand like there's a lot of nuance to this. There's a lot of moving parts, and there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. So again, make sure you surround yourself with the right team to walk you into and through retirement in the best way possible. So Michael, hopefully people will procrastinate less. I know we hear it all the time. People are, we have clients 70, 75. Yeah, I've been thinking about it, putting it off. And again, it goes back to that very first one I talked about where it's not laziness. It's just they don't want to kind of face it, face that fear almost.
Yep, I would agree 100%, Adam. And videos like this, hopefully just give a few more people that nudge to at least start the planning process.
Exactly. Well, Michael, thanks for joining us on this video, and we'll do it again soon.
You're welcome. Take care.